Okay, session number 5, and we're looking at scenario analysis. Now you will notice, I'm sure you have your assignment now, and there's a few scenarios in there. So this session is going to be another one you will need to make sure that you come back to. And the learning outcomes for this is you should be able to build scenarios into a scenario analysis in your spreadsheet. That's the first learning outcome. Second one is be able to use the VLOOKUP function, which is quite useful for when you have scenarios, so you can make it easy to present. And then the third one is you should be able to use the data validation. So you'll notice that when you use the data validation and the VLOOKUP function, they're quite powerful tools to work together. So Mabina will show you how to use these functions, and then just keep in mind that this will be very useful for your assignment.
Thank you, Michael. Now I'm going to show you how to create a VLOOKUP table. Let's start by explaining what it is. It's a useful tool where you create a table and you find a certain value, and when it finds a value, when Excel finds a value in the table, it reads off and it finds another value that matches along in the same row, and then it picks out the information. Sounds a bit complicated, but when I show you the example, it will make more sense. Okay, so we're going to start off with this example that we've got on the screen. The question that you'll see is one about a cheese making factory by a business called AJ. And we're given the information in the scenario where the sales price is £10 for a unit of cheese, and the variable cost is £2.50, and the fixed cost are £2,500. So what we'll do initially is, in the yellow boxes, we're going to fill in the actual values that we already know, and in the blue area, we're going to fill in the formulas, which will then help us to create the VLOOKUP table. So let's start off by clicking in our cell C5 and entering our selling price, which is £10. Our variable cost, we're told in the scenario, is £2.50, and the fixed costs we know are a value of £2,500 for the period. Okay, the other bit of information we are given in our scenario are the actual increases that the milk could have, because that's the only variable cost that we're told in this question. So the first one would be no increase, second one would be 10%, the next one 25%, and the last one would be 50%. So this is a scenario that we've got, and that's why we're entering these particular values. Okay, then we come down to our table that it's already been created. So again, in here, you will enter what the potential increases could be. So we're going to have it equal to the percentages that we've already entered. So I've clicked F5, and as you remember, you can autofill, because Excel will recognize the cells that you've collected it from, and it recognizes that if I'm highlighting it and dragging it down, it will copy the values that are already in the column F. So we've entered the potential increases in variable cost. Now we're actually going to enter the actual increase in variable cost per unit. So that would be equal to, so we start off with our formula, equal to what's in C6, which is our actual fixed cost, but we always want to use that value. So if you remember, you press F4, so it fixes the cell, and then you multiply by doing Shift and 8, and it's E12 that we want to multiply it by. So that will give us our potential increase in variable cost. Press enter, and obviously, because if the increase is 0, then the increase in variable cost per unit is still going to be 0. So again, we can take this and drag it down, and it will autofill. So if it has a 10% increase, so if this £2.50 has a 10% increase, that is equivalent to 25 pence. If it has a 25% increase, 63 pence, and if the variable cost of £2.50 increases by 50%, that will be an increase of £1.25. Okay, so therefore then the total variable cost per unit will then change from £2.50 to what? So again, we use a formula to say it will be equal to whatever's in C12, so which is our original price, F4 it, so we fix the cell, and then you will add the actual increase that it could have if it had a 0% increase. So we select cell F12. Again, press enter, click on the cell, and we can drag and copy that formula all the way down. So what we're saying is if there is a 10% increase in our original price of £2.50, that would result in a 25p increase, changing the price to £2.75. Now that we've filled in the total variable cost per unit, we're going to fill in the rest of the table. So contribution per unit. You should know by now from all your previous studies how you calculate contribution. That is selling price minus variable cost. So we'll enter our formula equal to selling price minus variable cost. We're not going to use the standard variable cost because we know we have an adjustment. So take that out and put in the new total variable cost, which is cell G12. Before I click enter, as I copied this formula down, I want it to move these cells down, so it will go from G12 to G15, but I want it to permanently pick up C5, so I need to fix cell C5. I click in it, press F4 to fix it, and now I can press enter. When I now drag it down, it will autofill, and I don't want to go any further. So again, just simply click on there, go back to home, click on here and no fill, and it removes the colour. Okay, so we've then got break-even number of units. Again, you should know your formula, and that is fixed costs divided by contribution per unit. So again, equals to fixed costs, which are 2,500, fix the cell by pressing F4, divided by, which is next to the shift button, and click on contribution per unit, which you've calculated, which is H12. Press enter. Click in the cell, take the mouse to the bottom right hand corner and drag it down, and it fills in our break even. Okay, now that we've completed the scenario details in yellow, we've created the blue table, which is our values. Now we're going to do the final bit, which is our output. So in this part, this is the actual VLOOKUP part. So here we're saying that for any of these values of increases in variable cost, depending on which ones you select, the table will recognize it and find the value and bring up the correct number of break-even units that it matches the increase in variable price. So here we've got select the increase to variable cost, and then it will then supply whatever you select here, it will bring in the matching value of break-even number of units. So you go to data, click on data validation, and here in this dialog box where it says allow, we want it to be a list, and we're going to the source is where we're taking our information. So highlight the area, so I clicked in the box where we want it to appear, highlight the values and click OK. If you look straight away, this has got now a little arrow. If you click on it, it's bringing up the different options that you've got. So what we'll do is you've got these values or these values that you have here. Now we're going to do the last part of the VLOOKUP. Click in the cell where I want my answer to appear, go up to the insert function, and it brings up by default this dialog box. Select VLOOKUP and OK, and we've got these 4 boxes that we need to complete. First one is saying where do we want it to look up the particular value? Well, we want it to be in C21. So it's going to search in C21, and then it's saying, I'm going to find what you've selected in here, but where do I want it to search? Well, we want it to search in this entire table. Once it's found the value that's in C21 within this whole table, then we're going to say we want it to move along and look for what's in the 5th column, because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we type in 5th column, and then we're saying once it's found it, we want it to put whatever's exactly matching. So we put a range of 0. Click OK, and what it's now showing in your break-even box is saying when you have the increase equivalent to 0%, the actual break-even number of units is 333. And if you look in your table, you've got at 0%, it does have break-even of 333. You can test it out, click in here and change it to 50%. What it's saying is when it's 50%, what is the break-even number of units? And it's automatically changed this. As soon as you select whatever percentage, it'll update in this cell the new value. So at 50%, the break-even number of units is 400, and that's what it's got. And that is how simple using VLOOKUP can be.